Rome, the beating heart of the ancient world. It began not as an empire, not even as a kingdom, but as a settlement of shepherds and traders beside the slow waters of the Tiber. No one could have imagined that from these muddy banks would rise the mightiest power the world had ever known. The Romans built not only with stone and iron, but with belief in their destiny, belief in order, in law, and in the eternal will of the gods. They carved roads through mountains and marshes, linking the corners of the known world, from Hispania to Judea, from the sands of Africa to the misty shores of Britannia. Their engineers defied nature, their soldiers defied death, and their rulers defied the limits of ambition. When Roman legions marched, the earth itself seemed to tremble. When their banners rose beneath the sun, entire nations bent their knees. They called themselves sons of the wolf, heirs of Mars, the god of war. And through conquest, they brought not just swords, but civilization, aqueducts, cities, language, and law. To be Roman was not simply to live under an empire, it was to belong to destiny itself. The Colosseum echoed with the cheers of thousands. Marble temples glistened under golden skies. Merchants from every land filled the forum with voices, gold, and gossip. The empire stretched across 3 continents, binding hundreds of peoples beneath a single symbol, SPQR, the Senate and people of Rome. For centuries, it seemed unshakable, eternal. Even their enemies believed it. To challenge Rome was to challenge the divine. And yet, beneath the marble and glory, cracks began to form. The same discipline that once forged Rome's greatness turned into arrogance. The same ambition that carried her armies to the ends of the earth became greed. The same pride that built her monuments began to blind her. Rome, the city that ruled the world, had forgotten to rule itself. And while the eagles still flew and the legions still marched, the heart of the empire, its virtue, its unity, its soul, had already begun to rot. Power, like fire, illuminates, but it also consumes. The Rome that once united the world began to devour itself from the inside. After the golden age of Augustus and Marcus Aurelius, the emperors who followed were not leaders guided by vision, but rulers blinded by indulgence. Commodus, the son of Marcus Aurelius, believed himself a god. He fought in the Colosseum dressed as Hercules, demanding that senators and generals worship him as divine. Caligula drowned Rome in madness, ordering the sea to be whipped for daring to resist him. Nero played his lyre while the city burned. The Senate, once the mind of Rome, became decoration. Men who once debated laws and philosophy now bowed their heads in fear, trading their honor for comfort. Assassination became the language of politics. A crown no longer symbolized duty, it symbolized survival. In the streets, the spirit of the people faded. The citizens of Rome no longer fought for the Republic, nor worked for the empire, they lived for bread and circuses. Every morning, lines of beggars filled the forum, waiting for free grain from the state. Every night, the amphitheaters roared with blood, gladiators killing to entertain a people who had forgotten what real struggle meant. The government kept the mob calm with food and spectacle, as if feeding a beast it no longer controlled. They called it peace, Pax Romana, but it was not peace. It was stagnation. And stagnation, for an empire, is death dressed in gold. The legions of Rome were once the envy of the world, unstoppable, disciplined, loyal. They built roads across mountains, forts across deserts, and order from chaos. But time erodes even iron. As the empire expanded, it became impossible to defend every border. The Danube, the Rhine, the Euphrates, these rivers once marked the limits of the known world. But the legions were stretched too thin. The soldiers grew tired, their leaders corrupt. Young Romans no longer wanted to fight. They wanted comfort, baths, and wine. The discipline that once forged Rome's strength had turned into entitlement. To fill the ranks, emperors hired foreign mercenaries, Goths, Franks, Vandals, men from lands Rome once conquered. They wore Roman armor, but their hearts were not Roman. They fought for gold, not for glory. They guarded the empire by day and dreamed of conquering it by night. The generals, too, lost their purpose. Loyalty was replaced by ambition. Each sought the throne for himself. In 1 century alone, over 20 emperors rose and fell, each one overthrown by his own army. The sword that had defended Rome now turned inward. Rome's greatest weapon had become its executioner. When steel failed, Rome turned to the heavens. The old gods Jupiter, Mars, Venus had once given Rome identity. Now they were silent, forgotten, replaced by new faiths whispering of salvation. Christianity, once a hunted religion of slaves and exiles, spread like wildfire through the empire. By the time of Constantine, it became the empire's heart and its wedge. The cross replaced the eagle. The temples of old were abandoned, the altars of Jupiter shattered, and faith became a battlefield. Rome was torn not by invaders, but by belief. Pagans called Christians traitors to the gods. Christians called pagans children of demons. And within Christianity itself, new schisms arose east against west, orthodox against heretic. In 395 AD, after the death of Emperor Theodosius, the empire was permanently divided. East and west, Constantinople and Rome, two empires pretending to be one. The unity that had bound the Mediterranean world for centuries was gone. And while the people argued over heaven, they forgot how to protect the earth beneath their feet. The storm finally came not from the gods, but from the north. Waves of desperate tribes pressed against Rome's borders. Goths, Vandals, Huns. They came not only to plunder, but to survive. In 376 AD, the Visigoths crossed the Danube River seeking refuge from the terrifying Huns. Rome, arrogant and cruel, allowed them entry, but treated them like animals. Abused and starved, they rose in revolt. In 378, at the Battle of Adrianople, the Roman army met the Goths head-on. It was a massacre. The emperor himself was killed, his body never found. For the first time in history, a Roman army had been annihilated by those they called barbarians. And in 410 AD, Alaric, the same Visigoth leader once paid to protect Rome, marched his men into the Eternal City. The gates opened not from strength, but from fear. For 3 days, Rome was looted and burned. The people who once ruled the world hid in cellars as smoke rose above their temples. Yet, no army came to save them. No legion returned from the front. The empire was too divided, too exhausted, too empty. The unthinkable had happened. Rome, the city that conquered all others, had been conquered itself. After the sack of Rome, nothing was the same. The empire limped on for decades, but the wound was fatal. It bled slowly, not from war, but from corruption, apathy, and decay. Emperors changed yearly. Civil wars erupted endlessly. Every general believed himself destined for the throne. Taxes crushed the poor, while the rich retreated into their villas, building private armies to guard their estates. The middle class, the craftsmen, the merchants, the farmers disappeared. Cities emptied, roads crumbled. Trade, the lifeblood of Rome, withered away. And with it, the idea of Rome itself began to vanish. Children no longer dreamed of joining the legions or serving the Senate. They dreamed only of surviving another day. Even the capital moved first to Milan, then Ravenna, as if running from its own shadow. The Eternal City became eternal only in memory. By the 5th century, the empire was hollow. Its marble palaces housed ghosts. Its senators debated over ruins. Its soldiers guarded a name that no longer meant anything. By the year 476, Rome was but a whisper of its past. Its armies were mercenaries, its emperors puppets, its senate irrelevant. The empire that had ruled the world was now ruled by chaos. The final emperor, a boy named Romulus Augustulus, sat on a throne of dust. Even his name mocked history. Romulus, the founder of Rome, and Augustus, its greatest ruler. He was neither. He was the last ember of a dying fire. The man who ended Rome's 1,000-year reign was not a conqueror from afar, but one of its own creations. Odoacer, a Germanic general in the Roman army. He marched into the palace, took the imperial crown, and sent it to the Eastern emperor in Constantinople. No grand battle. No last stand. Just silence. 1,000 years of empire gone. The banner of the eagle fell, and with it, the illusion of eternity. Rome had not been slain by swords, but by time, greed, and the slow death of belief. Rome's story is not merely history, it is prophecy. It warns us that no civilization, no matter how mighty, is immune to decay. Not the wealthiest, not the wisest, not the most powerful. Empires do not fall because of invasion, they fall because they lose themselves. When leaders seek power instead of purpose, when citizens trade freedom for comfort, when truth becomes entertainment and honor becomes a joke, that is when decline begins. Rome still echoes in the modern world in our laws, our cities, our politics. But perhaps its most important legacy is its warning. Every generation thinks itself eternal. Every nation believes it is different. But time is patient, and hubris is eternal. Someday, historians may speak of our age the way we speak of Rome. A world of marvels, arrogance, brilliance, and blindness. And when that day comes, they will not ask who destroyed us, but why we destroyed ourselves. The stones of Rome are silent, yet they still speak. Not of emperors, nor of conquests, but of memory. Empires rise, empires fall. But the spirit that built them, the courage, the vision, the arrogance lives on in us. And maybe that is Rome's true immortality. Not in its walls or wars, but in the mirror it leaves behind for every age that dares to call itself eternal.